On May 6, 2017, the Cushing Support and Research Foundation hosted a webinar on quality of life, self-care strategies, and passionate pursuits, presented by Dawn Herring. Dawn is a licensed marriage and family therapist with over 20 years of experience. She currently works at the Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton as a clinical supervisor in the Community Counseling Center. Dawn has extensive public speaking experience in the areas of healthy relationships, self-care, compassion fatigue, and caregiver burnout, trauma, and stress management. She is also trained in EMDR in evidence-based treatment for trauma. Dawn is also a Cushing survivor in remission, having undergone transsphenoidal surgery in 2014. We're so happy to have her speaking with us today, and I hope that each and every one of you gets a lot out of this. Unfortunately, the first couple of minutes of this presentation weren't reported, but I hope that you haven't missed out on too much, and please let us know if you have any feedback. Thank you so much. And without further ado, here is Dawn.
So I invite, of course, friends and loved ones to also receive this information and take what is useful for you. Speaking of taking what is useful, because we have a tremendous amount of content to cover in the next hour, I want to just give everyone permission to take whatever is useful to you and leave the rest. As I read over what people are doing to help, what I found is we have incredible self-care as a community. You may find, therefore, that at times your mind is wandering. It may think, oh, I already do this, or I don't want to hear that. Where's the stuff I want to hear? But I would invite you to allow your mind to wander and also to keep some paper and pen next to you, because you may find things to jot down. As your mind wanders, it's going to take you where it needs to go. And I invite you to write down whatever you end up thinking about, and then, bring your mind back when you're ready. We will be having the PowerPoint available as well as the audio available later. So I don't want you to feel as though you have to frantically write, because it will be available later. I will do my best to clarify if I think that there's something that is worth writing down that maybe is not in the PowerPoint. Now, at the end, after our Q&A, I want to end our time together with a 5-minute healing visualization. So for anybody who wants to stay on and do that, know that that's going to come at the end of the Q&A. The reason for that is that visualization work is a very right-brained activity. And we are going to be spending most of the next hour in our left brain, right? We're going to be processing, we're going to be making sense of things, but I think that healing really comes from a balance of left and right brain activity at the same time. So I want to end us in our right mind, if you will, and that'll be how we conclude today's webinar. So please look forward to that at the end. So I want to begin with a quote from Mother Teresa that I have long loved, and it's so simple. To keep a lamp burning, we have to keep putting oil in it. I think we've all learned that the medical community has been crucial to our recovery, yet they are not ultimately responsible for our quality of life and therefore our self-care. So it is up to us, to a large extent, to keep that lamp burning, right? To keep our quality of life, to keep our self-care strategies. And so I like this quote because I think it speaks to the fact that we can keep the lamp burning as long as we keep putting oil in it. And that oil for me is, of course, our self-care strategies and our passionate pursuits. So my overall goal today is that I want to give us all time to just explore our self-care strategies and to applaud ourselves really for that which we are doing well. Often we do self-care strategies sort of unconsciously, and today is a good day to remember, to maybe even make a list of what is it that we are all doing to care for ourselves on a daily basis. I also want to give us a time and place to discuss passionate pursuits and to develop strategies to enhance both of these, both our self-care strategies and our passionate pursuits as needed. So my objectives will be that we are able to identify 3 self-care strategies. We have many, many more. As I looked at the list, there are just hundreds of self-care strategies out there. That we will be able to identify 1 passionate pursuit, and that we will be able to create a plan of action by the time our hour is over to better meet our overall self-care. So we're going to start with some basic definitions. Self-care for me is defined as actions or thoughts, and I think this is important. It's not just actions, it's also how we talk to ourselves that are executed to maintain a quality of life and our well-being. Self-compassion is a concept I took from a woman by the name of Kristin Neff, and she is a psychologist. We'll be talking about her work later. But self-compassion is an integral part of self-care, and it really involves offering ourselves kindness and self-awareness without judgment. And that without judgment is a crucial piece of self-compassion and self-care. And finally, our passionate pursuits, which we're going to talk about closer to the end of the presentation, are activities that we engage in that bring us purpose and meaning, joy, the quick passing of time, a sense of contentment or accomplishment and or pride. So self-care is one part of quality of life, but for me to have full-on quality of life, we also will engage in passionate pursuits. So why is this important? Our self-care strategies directly impact our quality of life, and we know that. We know that from research. And I just want to invite people to review the most recent, the spring 2017 CSRF newsletter has an article on the quality of life on pages 10 and 11. So I invite you to look at that. Hopefully you've had access to that newsletter by now. And here's what our brief overview is going to look like. I have divided the self-care strategies into really 4 components. And I call each of these sort of the shock absorbers of stress, right? We know what shock absorbers do in a car. And my belief is that these avenues of self-care collectively assist in providing proper shock absorbers for us to maintain our self-care and to help our quality of life. So we're going to start with cognitive. Cognitive is a really big one. And as I looked at people's responses, you had phenomenal responses to this. So I'm going to review these slides, and then I'm going to read to you all some of the cognitive strategies you all had. A quote I really like by Buddha is, "The mind is everything. What you think you become." And as we talk about cognitive strategies more, we'll understand why this can be so true. We know that as we consider self-care, we have to be able to imagine wellness again. And the imagination is really, really powerful because it sends hormonal signals, biochemical signals to the body. So it is so important for us to spend time daily thinking about and also feeling in our bodies a sense of wellness, remembering what that felt like, and really believing in our body to feel that again. So there's something special about the combination of thinking and feeling it and imagining it. And that is really a cognitive strategy. It's also a mind-body strategy. So one of the cognitive strategies that I saw a lot of people said they have had is what we often call CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. A big component of CBT is positive self-talk. And we know from tons of research that positive self-talk and CBT actually assist to decrease the anxiety and depression. One of the things that happens with anxiety and depression is a whole host of negative thinking, and it's really automatic, and sometimes we don't even recognize we're doing it. And some examples of that may be a category called all or nothing thinking. An example of this might be, if I don't get everything done today, I'm just lazy. Right? If I don't get everything done today, I'm just lazy. So it's very all or nothing. It doesn't give us a whole lot of wiggle room for, I'm going to do the best I can today, and I'll work on it again tomorrow. Right? That might be a way to turn that all or nothing thinking into positive self-talk. Another very common category is shoulding. In the mental health world, we talk about we shouldn't should on ourselves or others, but we'll often say, you know, you really should, or oh, I should. And the problem with shoulding is it provides this extra layer of guilt if we don't get it right. I should do the dishes. I really should do the laundry and the bills and the lawn. But instead, we might be able to say, I'd like to get the dishes done today. I'm going to do my best. I'd like to get the lawn mowed today. I'd like to pay the bills. So it's a little gentler when we do that rather than shoulding. Does that make sense? There's also a really common category, and I haven't listed all of the negative categories, but I'm listing, I think, the most popular few. Jumping to conclusions is a really great one. I'm never going to get better. I just know it. I'm never going to get better. And the doctors are never going to listen to me. Nobody listens to me, right? So we're sort of jumping to conclusions. Actually, that nobody listens to me is a very all or nothing thinking, but that I'm never going to get better is a great example of jumping to conclusions. We're sort of forecasting the future. Another category of jumping to conclusions that I know I have experienced and I wrote about in one of the CSRF newsletters was mind reading. I gave an example of shortly after my second hip replacement, I was at the gym for the first time, and I had, of course, muscle wasting. It was post-op for my transpenoidal surgery, but I was getting a second hip done, and I thought I have to get to the gym. So I'm at the gym in my mismatched clothing. I hadn't washed my hair, barely showed up to the gym, and there was this woman there in her completely matching hot pink gym outfit with her hair all done up and her makeup on. And I looked at her, and she was clearly waiting to use the machine that I was on. And I was on that machine using like 20 pounds, right? And I'd seen her on other machines, and she was lifting a lot of weight. And I felt as though she was thinking, oh my gosh, why is this woman even at the gym? And can't she even dress herself, right? And so I had a lot of mind reading going on. And I went to the restroom, you know, when I was done working out to wash my hands, and she was in the restroom, and she said to me, I just have to tell you, you have the most amazing body. My girlfriends and I were noticing you have this amazing body, and I tell you, my jaw dropped. And I don't even know that I could make a sentence very well after that. I thanked her. And as I left the gym, I thought, mind reading, Dawn, the power of mind reading. So we mind read in many ways, and it's rarely in a good way. So one of the cognitive strategies that can be very useful to our self-care is just to check our mind reading, to say, you know what, if I really think they believe that, maybe I can ask, or I can just dismiss it because I don't really know. So along with mind reading often comes emotional reasoning. While I was at the gym, I didn't feel very good about myself, so of course I figured nobody else would either, right? And emotional reasoning is any time we feel something and think it's true. I feel ugly, I feel stupid, I feel not lovable. Feelings aren't facts. Feelings aren't facts. So emotions always have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and they move along fairly quickly. So it's really important for us to recognize that just because we feel a certain way, it doesn't make it true. So for anyone who wants to work on their cognitive strategies, a really good book to do that with is the Feeling Good book by David Burns. So I put him at the bottom, and he's also at the end in our resources. So another cognitive strategy, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, was self-compassion. And Dr. Kristin Neff, who is a psychologist, writes extensively on self-compassion. Her definition is self-compassion is just comforting and caring for ourselves. It involves three components. Number one, self-kindness versus judgment. So in essence, we are being warm and understanding with ourselves rather than judging and critical. Would we talk to a friend the way we talk to ourselves? Probably not. So self-kindness. A second component for her is remembering our common humanity versus isolation. And I saw this in many people's responses. somebody said that what they do is they volunteer in a retirement home, and then they can see, you know, here are people who are bedridden and I'm not. So anything we do to remember our common humanity, that we're not isolated. In fact, the world is filled with people who are struggling, and we are all in this together. And then the last component, she says, is just having mindfulness over versus over identification. So an awareness of how I feel, but also not being defined by my illness. I'm not my illness. And I know when I was recovering, I was seeing an acupuncturist 3 times a week, actually, before my surgery. And he would say, Dawn, be careful how you speak about Cushing's. You are not your illness. And I found that to be really useful. Do I have this disease, or is this disease something with which I'm coping? And he would argue, please don't say you have this disease. Say, I'm coping with this disease. It keeps it a little bit less close to your chest. You don't want to own it. You want to be aware of it, and you want to be working toward balance. And it's a collaboration between us and the medical community. So he would challenge my thinking around that so that I wouldn't over-identify. So mindfulness, and we're going to talk more about mindfulness in a little bit as well. Another simple strategy, and I also saw this in what people are doing to help, is creating a journal, specifically a gratitude journal, so that we can capture any healing changes in our body and in our mind, and any helpful coping strategies, any helpful relationships, anything for which we feel grateful. Now, one of my favorite cognitive strategies, which is, again, sort of a mind-body approach, is taken from a therapist whose specialty is trauma. And she wrote a book called Tapping In, and it's really a host of resources that assist people in imagining whatever we need to imagine to head in that direction for wellness. So one of the things that she talks about that I use a lot with my own clients, regardless of what they're working on, is identifying real or imagined figures, specifically those that we would deem to be nurturing toward us, protective of us, and wise. And imagining them surrounding us in a circle. So when we struggle with patience, when we don't know what to do, we could imagine calling on this circle and thinking to ourselves, you know, what would this protective person say? What would this wise person say? So hopefully that makes sense. You know, I had somebody tell me that their nurturing figure was Mother Teresa because she just seemed so non-judgmental and so full of love. And so this client would then imagine when she was being critical with herself, what would Mother Teresa say to me right now? I had another client who had as his protective figure Batman, right? That when the chips were down and things were going rough and he felt like he needed extra protection, he could imagine what Batman would say and what Batman would do in that situation. And then I had another client who had for her wise figure Albert Einstein. And so she would just imagine, what would Albert Einstein say? What would he say is necessary and needed right now? So that could be a creative visualization exercise. It is surely one of my favorites. It also serves to help buoy us up if our childhoods maybe were less than ideal, and maybe we didn't have all the nurturing, protective, and wise figures at that time that we needed. So it gives us today an internal resource on which to call upon to feel even stronger. So I recommend Dr. Pownell's book just because it's been very helpful to me and to my clients. It's a user-friendly book. It's a paperback book, so it's worth taking a look at. So here's some exciting research for me. There's an article written called Mind Over Matter, Mental Training Increases Physical Strength. And it was written by Aaron Shackle and Lionel Standing in 2007. It was a small sample size of 30 male undergraduate students. But what they wanted to do is they wanted to see, could imagining working out build muscle? And what they found was stunning to me. They actually took a much longer study and replicated it in a shorter period of time. And they were studying hip flexor strength. And what they found is after 2 weeks, they had a control group, a mental training group, and then a physical training group. And they found that the mental training group, who did no physical activity to build this hip flexor muscle, they improved in strength 24%. 24% improvement in their physical strength, just imagining doing certain exercises. That's astonishing to me. The physical training group improved 28%, and the control group did not improve significantly. So I think that's really powerful in terms of the power we have with our mind to assist us in healing and in balancing. They also noticed, although it was much smaller and not that significant, but the systolic, not the diastolic, but the systolic blood pressure and heart rate decreased both for the mental training group and the physical training group, but not the control group. And I find this interesting since, you know, many of us Cushing's patients have had trouble with our blood pressure. I remember the first time I got told I had hypertension, I thought, what? That came long before the diagnosis. So to be able to hear that the mind can have some role in blood pressure and in physical muscle building by just imagining, right? So you see sort of my theme here is this, we have to be able to imagine. So their article is available online, that Mind Over Matter, Mental Training Increases Physical Strength. And I invite anyone curious about that kind of research to look that up. So another cognitive strategy really, and we've referenced this several times here, is just the concept of mindfulness. How awareness of our body and our emotions and our thought without judgment really stops that circular thinking. And I think we all know what that circular thinking feels like. When I was in the throes of Cushing's, I could not stop this circular thinking. I thought I developed an anxiety disorder. I really had just developed really high doses of cortisol running through my body. But I thought, oh my gosh, this must be what an anxiety disorder feels like. Maybe it's menopause. I didn't know. But mindfulness assists us in just being aware. So I made an acronym. I work for the military. We love acronyms, so I tend to make lots of acronyms. BET, to be aware of the body, the emotions, and the thought. So when we find we're spinning in our head and we're feeling that anxiety ratcheted up, can we go for a walk or sit down, but whatever works for us, and just say, okay, body, what's my body feel? Okay, emotions, what am I feeling? Okay, what am I thinking? And I start with the body because I think it's the easiest to access. It's hard to get to our thinking, what we often call stinking thinking. It's hard to get to that right away, but we most often know we have distress in our body. So just to ask ourselves those 3 questions can calm the body and calm the mind a little bit. And a mantra or a positive affirmation after doing this exercise may just be, I'm capable. I'm capable. And then you can morph that into whatever you want. I'm capable and growing. I'm capable and healing. I'm doing the best I can. Right? So anything that is gentle. Anything that is gentle. Okay, so we are now going to transition from cognitive strategies to behavioral strategies. This is a very exciting area for me. As Alyssa mentioned, I am a trauma treatment therapist, so my background is really focused on the belief that trauma is in the body as well as the mind, and that when we reprocess, we must move it out of the body as well as the mind, so that there are no more triggers. I have found that not so much the Cushing's diagnosis is traumatic. In fact, as many have felt that's been a relief, but the traumatic experiences up to the diagnosis, and maybe sometimes even after, have truly been, I guess, what I call sucker punches. When we maybe don't feel seen, we don't feel heard. And the trauma treatment community knows that we must heal the body as well as the mind. So one modality that I'm trained in is called EMDR, and it stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing. You don't have to write that down. There's actually a reference at the end to the EMDR online Find a Therapist community. But one of the things that EMDR has found is that any bilateral stimulation of the body improves the mind and the body. And by that I mean walking is bilateral stimulation, right? We're stimulating the left and right hemisphere of the body. Running is bilateral stimulation. Swimming, weightlifting, quilting, right? Video games. There are many things that we do that stimulate the left and right hemispheres of the brain and the left and right sides of the body. What we know from trauma research is that slow bilateral stimulation calms the body, and fast bilateral stimulation influences processing. So if we have circular thinking going on and we go for a run, or we get on the elliptical and we go, 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 we will find that we tend to clear our mind, right? We'll clear. And if you've ever seen an upset person, upset people don't sit well, right? They want to pace, they want to move. And that's because the body innately knows how to calm itself down. So when we're taking a look at behavioral strategies for self-care in Cushing's, physical activity becomes paramount. And I saw just dozens of different activities that people are doing in terms of physical activity. And I want to echo some of those here. Any gentle movement that is focused on breath and calming, so yoga, Pilates, walking, anything that stimulates bilateral stimulation. And what I would ask you to be aware of is, when you do a physical activity, does it calm you down or ratchet you up again? So as long as it calms you down, that's the most important thing. So another basic behavioral strategy is just eating well and taking helpful supplements. And collaborating with a doctor to take supplements. I saw many people spoke to various supplements they took that helped them. We'll cover some of those in a little bit. Good sleep hygiene. There's now some research out there that says that the blue light emitted from our electronic devices actually mimics the sun. So when we're taking a look at cortisol and melatonin and that balance that the body does, right, that feedback loop that we are all too familiar with the HPA axis, we know now that being on our electronic devices before bed actually confuses the body. It confuses the body. The body seems to think, oh, it's still sunny out. Why would we release melatonin and go to sleep? So as we learn more and more about that, we're encouraging people more and more to put their electronic devices to the side at least 2 hours prior to bed. And if one can't, then most of the phones now have a dimmer on them that you can dim for nighttime. So my phone dims at 7 p.m. at night, and it lights up again at 7 a.m. Doesn't mean I can't see it. It just means that the screen is not bright. So good sleep hygiene is really, really important. And then medication compliance. What are we doing medically? What are we doing for our medication? Somebody had written that something they find useful is to set their phone alarm so that they remember to take their medication on time. So I think any structure that helps us do that is, of course, going to be useful. And whatever that is for people is up to you, because different things work for different people. So basic behavioral strategies. And I want to cover some more fun research. Amy Cuddy is referenced in the back in references, but she did a TED Talk that I love, and it's called Your Body Language Shapes Who You Are. So she did a 20-minute TED Talk. I like 20-minute TED Talks because I can focus that long. And particularly in the first 2 years of my healing, I couldn't focus to read a magazine article, but I could listen to a TED Talk. and feel inspired when I was done. And I think that's important because then the left brain got the knowledge, the right brain got inspired, and together I learned. So Amy Cuddy talks about being aware of our body language and adjusting it. And we're going to talk in a minute about what she calls power poses. And these power poses that she discusses, just really how we hold our body. There was some research done that said that people who could do these power poses for 2 minutes a day increased their testosterone by 20% and decreased their salivary cortisol by 25%. That's pretty substantial, just doing a pose 2 minutes a day. So while we have no idea the impact of this on Cushing's patients, I think it's worth noting that how we feel about ourselves impacts how we carry ourselves. And this could impact our hormones, right? So it's not just that we have high cortisol, right? We still have control over a lot that's going on in our body. So what I like about her is she says, you know, we have to fake it till we make it and become it. It's not just fake it till you make it. Fake it till we make it and become it. So 2 power poses that she recommended was number 1, the Wonder Woman pose, where we stand, you know, with our legs spread hip width distance apart and our hands on our hips for 2 minutes a day. That apparently increased testosterone, which is sort of the confidence hormone, and decreased cortisol. Isn't that amazing? And then the V pose for victory. You see runners when they cross the finish line, right? Basketball players when they win the game, football players, and those arms are up in the air in this V pose. Now, what I find fascinating is yoga, in and of itself, focuses a lot on power poses. So for any of you doing yoga, you're getting your power poses in. So I think that's just a beautiful thing. Those little things have research backing them up as being profound in how they change how we feel about ourselves and how therefore we present to the world, which is going to impact the feedback we get from others, right, when we're out and about. And I think for me, the combination of the exhaustion and the fatigue from Cushing's and having 2 hip replacements changed how I carried my body. I had been so physically vulnerable for so long that I realized I could catch a glimpse of myself in a store window walking down the street and think, oh my goodness, that doesn't even look like me. That body language isn't me. So I thought, you know, I have to remember how I used to carry myself and how I used to feel in my body. And I practiced and I practiced and I practiced. And just yesterday, I was at the hairdresser, and my hairdresser said to me, you know, you carry your body so elegantly and like a dancer. And I thought, oh my goodness, if you'd have only seen me 2 years ago, right? So even that can help us feel better. And then we're getting feedback from others about that. So another behavioral strategy. So now we're going to move on to spiritual strategies. And I want to say something about this before we begin this section. You know, spirituality can be anything. Spirituality can be a belief in your higher self. It can be a belief in your ability to overcome. It has really mostly in common that it is something that is larger than oneself, right? So it may be for some organized religion, it may be for others a love of nature. So I'm not here to define for anyone what that is, but I'm here to sort of allow us to consider what that may be for you, and also just to share some quotes that I have found useful. From Ecclesiastes 11:4, I liked this quote: if you wait until the wind and the weather are just right, you will never plant anything and never harvest anything. So having a belief in something larger is actually a factor in resilience and quality of life. And so it then therefore becomes a component of self-care that we want to at least pay attention to and ask ourselves, you know, what am I doing? Is there anything I'm doing that is helping me in my self-care spiritually? So we know that often when people have faith, this allows them to believe they will heal and in fact begin to feel more hopeful and well. Right, so again, we're coming back to the power of the mind and the power of imagining healing, imagining what that looks like and feels like. And another significant component of spiritual strategies is they can give us purpose and meaning to thrive rather than just survive. One of my favorite authors, particularly because I worked for the military and he was embedded with an army unit in Afghanistan, is a man by the name of Sebastian Junger. He wrote Tribe. He also wrote the book The Perfect Storm. And a quote that I was just hit between the eyes when I read is, humans don't mind hardship. In fact, they thrive on it. What they mind is not feeling necessary. What they mind is not feeling necessary. So therefore, we are called upon to find what gives us purpose and meaning, what helps us feel necessary. For many of us, we are in the process of redefining this due to Cushing's interrupting what created our sense of purpose and meaning before. So that is part of what we are sort of existentially wrestling with and looking for. And we don't have to have found it. We just have to be in the process of asking that question. And if we ask the question, eventually the answers come. The answers come. So one of my favorite quotes throughout my years in working with clients who have experienced despair, feelings of powerlessness or frustration, is the serenity prayer. And I worked with a lot of atheists, and I just tell them, you know what, leave out the God and the Amen and just repeat after this, right? Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. And what is that? Right? That's probably everything where our nose ends, right? We don't have control of others. We don't have control of their perceptions, of their beliefs, of how they treat us. The courage to change the things I can, well, that's everything inside me. My thoughts, my feelings, how I cope, and the wisdom to know the difference. So I have had many a days in the recovery process where I just went back to this quote and I just repeated this to myself. And I call it a chiropractic adjustment for the mind, right? It helped me focus on what I had control over, which immediately decreased my frustration because I could be gentle with myself, but I was not gentle with other people. Right? And there were doctors that I would replay conversations in my head over and over again about things I wish I would have said or could have said without my filter. And of course, ultimately, I was glad I didn't. But nevertheless, you know, I think that we've all had numerous experiences that resulted in frustration and anger and hurt. And one of the things that can quiet that really is to just kind of come back to that quiet place inside that says, all right, let me have the courage to change what I can and the wisdom to know the difference. So the last quote I want to share is one I collaborate sometimes with the chaplains that work with the military, and a chaplain with whom I was working was sharing this quote, and neither of us knew who the author was, so I tried to find it too, and I don't know, but I like this. I thought, again, for anger and for frustration, for our relationships, this one becomes useful. Practice the pause. When in doubt, pause. When angry, pause. When tired, pause. When stressed, pause. And when you pause, pray. And you replace that pray with walk, with yoga, with, you know, be with my dog. Whatever it is, you want to have something to do when you know you need to pause, but pausing is not coming easily, right? Because that happens quite a bit. Okay, so we are leaving spiritual strategies for self-care, and we are going to move on to interpersonal strategies. Again, some of my favorites. For those of you who've read the articles that I've written on coping, you've probably come across this acronym before, but I find that a tremendous amount of healing comes from connecting with people who get us. And there is a body of literature in the mental health community, and some of you are mental health professionals as well, and have studied psychology, so you will be familiar with this. Attachment theory. Attachment theory was really studied and identified by a man named John Bowlby. And what he basically said is that we all need certain things to survive. We need touch, healthy touch from people that matter to us. We need eye contact. Now, eye contact is a cultural thing, right? Some cultures don't give eye contact, but there's still the essential sense of not being invisible. We need to be seen accurately and heard accurately, and we need to be delighted in. Often when people say, I married so-and-so, and I say, what was it about him or her that told you they were the one? And they'll say, they just got me. They just get me. And that get me means that we're really seen and heard accurately and delighted in. So how can we connect with people who give us touched? Right? Who do we have in our life that we feel is non-judgmental, that can give us hugs, that is willing to sit and listen, be with us, delight in us? So I think this piece becomes really powerful for our healing. And I want to mention for a moment the touch piece. We know this from trauma work, but I think also this can apply to Cushing survivors. There are certain things when it comes to touch that can help us. Massage can help us. Acupuncture can help us. Both of these involve touch. When we go to sleep at night, body pillows can help. Heavy blankets, if we're not overheated, can help calm the nervous system. The body doesn't know the difference if it's sleeping with a body pillow. I tell people who are single, especially when they notice just this deep sense of longing or loneliness, get a body pillow. And if you live somewhere where it's cold, get an electric blanket. Turn that thing on and then go brush your teeth and come back to bed. And your nervous system will calm. And it's so simple. We also know that touch from others can decrease pain. So there's a lot of research on the power of touch to decrease pain. So I think that piece matters too. So we want to get our touched. And another acronym we want to get is focusing on connecting with people who give us ARP. Now, it's not a very attractive sounding acronym, but nevertheless, it works. We want people who are available, reliable, and can prioritize us. And by available, we mean, do you come when I call? Do you answer my messages? Do you text back? Do you respond to me? Are you available to me when I need you? Are you reliable? Are you a person of your word? If you say you're going to come over, do you come over? Do we do what we say? And do they do what they say? And then people who prioritize us, who really let us know that we are a priority. These three things from attachment theory give us a sense of really a secure base, a sense that the world can be a safe place. So we want to focus on finding people who give us these three things, and maybe minimizing our contact and setting boundaries with people who talk a good talk but don't walk it, because we'll find that we're going to be more distressed by those people. And there's nothing good about that when we're talking about healing from Cushing's. We don't want that extra distress. So we want people who are available, reliable, and prioritize us. And then one of my favorite authors, therapist, is Bren Brown. And she's done several TED Talks, one on vulnerability that I really like, and another on empathy. She, at the end of her animated empathy video, which I also reference in our resources section, says, rarely does a response make something better. What makes something better is connection. And she gives an example of sitting with someone and not knowing what to say, and being able to say, I have no idea what to say right now, but I want you to know I'm here. And that's such a simple thing, but people don't think about it because people want to fix it for us. And their presence is really the prescription. There's no fixing it for us. So I tell people, your presence is the prescription for me. When you want to know what you can do to help, it's your presence. So thank you for your presence, and thank you for just asking. So that can help as well. And then, as we've mentioned, connection with others can decrease pain. And part of what we are working with is the management of our own pain. So many of you wrote in that you have found a supportive network, whether it is on Facebook, whether it is in person, whether it is with your family and your relatives, that helps you And in so helping us, interpersonally, it's going to help us manage our pain, right? We are hardwired for connection. We know this. Babies die without it, right? You can feed a baby, clothe a baby, and put a roof over that baby's head. But if that baby is not seen and heard and touched, that infant can still die, which tells us we are hardwired to connect with people. So I want to spend just a couple of minutes talking about what people mentioned when they talked about what they did to help cope. Because I think that if we were all in a room together, this conversation would lift motivation, and to hear one another talk would help you leave feeling more inspired. And so I'm going to be that virtual room in which we are all sitting. And I just want to share with you some of the amazing things that you've said. In answer to the question, what did you do to help? What you did to help you cope with Cushing's? People said things like, go slow. I listened to music, studied and played music, cognitive behavioral therapy, walking, giving myself lots of space to heal and feel, daily meditation, lots of physical exercise, massage, sleep. By the way, sleep is a really, really popular category no matter what the question is, and I have to second that. Physical therapy, changing my expectations helped me cope. Snuggling with my children, blogging about it, hot sauna, infrared sauna, hot baths, leaning on God, enjoying the little things, sunshine, watching my diet, CSRF, the Cushing Support and Research Foundation, making lists, doing my own research, prayer, cooking, watching my attitude, and talking to myself in the mirror, which I thought was a really fascinating one. You know, at some point during Cushing's, we all look in the mirror and think, who is this person? And this person who responded just mentioned that when she looked in the mirror, she didn't really recognize herself anymore, so she just talked to herself. And I thought, oh, how lovely that is, right? Because it's gentle, it shows self-compassion. So those were just some of the answers people had for what they did to cope. Another category that we asked was, have you found anything useful in compensating for decreased memory and concentration? And many people wrote brain games, crossword puzzles, books on tape, again, sleep, making lists, reviewing lists. We had some very specific things like, these are Japanese, Kokuro and Sudoku, Invisibilia podcasts, B12 injections, watching Jeopardy, taking medication for ADD, watching films not in my first language but in a second language, detoxing my liver and kidneys, lumosity, taking college classes. So there, anything useful in compensating for decreased memory. Now, in answer to what do people do to cope with depression and anxiety? Again, just a lot of really wonderful answers. Faith, having my morning resolve, my dogs, right? We know dogs. Dogs give us really good touch. They give us touch and eye contact. They see and hear us, and they delight in us like no other, right? So they rock it when it comes to giving us touch. Also for depression and anxiety, taking medication, attending weekly counseling, taking warm showers, doing breath work, yoga, Pilates, support groups, walking, affirmations daily, talking to myself silently and mindfully, reminding myself to go slow, allowing my breathing. Right, so a lot of this is just mindfulness, directing my church choir, again, cooking, watching comedy on TV. It's excellent stuff. And then the last category was, what have you done to just help manage the other stuff like pain and fatigue? And people noted things such as having a healthy diet, going vegan, acupuncture, being stubborn and tough-minded. I love that because I think that that is the resilience, right, that we all have. Avoiding junk food, sugar, and alcohol. Frankincense oil for joint pain, remembering it will get better. Cold, wet towels when I feel hot. Exercise. A lot of people just talked about different exercise. And I think whatever you do is going to be different for you. So it has to feel good to you. It has to resonate with you. I have found much more gentle exercise now is the rule of thumb for me. I can't, there's no more Zumba for me. But Zumba for some might work just fine. Being kind to myself, maintaining my spiritual practice, staying on a schedule, resting when I need to, sunshine, vitamin D3, Advil, Pilates, and essential oils, right? So all of that can help us, and that includes now the cognitive, the behavioral, the spiritual, and the interpersonal strategies. So as a community, we are doing an incredible job of caring for ourselves and of healing. So I want to talk for a minute about passionate pursuits. This is something that often gets neglected because we are so busy surviving, not thriving, right? And there is a time when all we can do is survive. But to just ask ourselves the question, and perhaps to journal about it, or to go for a walk and think about it, what gives me purpose and meaning and joy, contentment, a sense of accomplishment today? Some people will say, gardening, woodwork, playing a musical instrument, volunteering, time with my children or grandchildren. The key really here is it sings to our heart. And I know that's not very measurable behaviorally, but it's a very right-brained activity, a passionate pursuit. And we know it when we found it. And we may not have had one for decades. So we get to update that and ask ourselves today, what might be something I feel passionate about? And what makes time fly? I think this is an important component. What makes time fly? Okay, so the challenge then to us becomes to engage in these activities once we identify them with our new normal, remembering our self-compassion. Involve others. So if our passionate pursuit can involve others, then that may help. And as Bren Brown again said, share with people who have earned the right to hear your story. I want to repeat that. Share with people who have earned the right to hear your story. So in summary, I applaud you all for continuing to care for yourself daily in little ways and in big ways. And I encourage everyone to remember to be kind, be compassionate, be creative, and forgiving of yourself. And know that everything you do is making a difference every day. And that healing is a process, not an event. So as we continue our process, we will continue to heal. This last page is a list of resources I have for you. I've divided them into sections. So the first section is resources to calm the body and mind that may assist with depression and anxiety. So you'll see that. I apologize for the small font, but I wanted it all on one page for everybody. I've included in there, a lot of people complained about sleep, and I included in there some free meditations that are available on YouTube, and they're called Yoga Nidra, which basically means sleep yoga. And they're by a company called Tripura Mandala. There are thousands of things available on YouTube that are free, and you kind of just have to hunt and peck and find what works for you. But for several years, I was not able to sleep without those. And then when I used those, I did manage to fall asleep within the hour, which was progress for me. So I just invite you to look at that as an option. I included also, as we look up, Amy Cuddy's TED Talk for anyone who wants to watch it. It was funny, so you may appreciate that. I included Kristin Neff's work on self-compassion. I encourage people to look at her website because on her website she has guided meditations for free on breathing, on loving kindness, on self-compassion. Her website is an incredible resource for us. She also has a recommended reading list for anyone who wants to read more about self-compassion and radical acceptance, which can assist us in healing. And then down under resources for relationships, I put one of my favorite couples therapists, John Gottman, and a book he wrote, as well as his website. I found that to be very useful for couples. I included Bren Brown's on empathy to show to any family member or friend you might want to. And one of my favorite is Not About the Nail YouTube videos that really just talks about communication between men and women and why sometimes it's challenging, but it's a funny minute and 41 seconds. So if you want a good laugh, you can have that. And then at the very bottom, I put a couple of resources for just support system. One is a fabulous book called Option B, Facing Adversity, Building Resource, and Finding Joy. So I encourage you all to look at that. They also have online support groups, and I found that to be really useful. And then a great little website that actually I got turned on to by one of our Cushing's patients who wrote in about the spoon theory. So I looked them up, and the website is called butyoudon'tlook.sick.com, and it talks about the spoon theory, about we only have so many spoons in a day, and when we hand them out, we're done. And people may still want our time and our energy and our attention, but we're done. We're done. So the spoon theory, I think, helps explain Cushing's to loved ones. So I invite you all to look at that too. So that concludes the PowerPoint part of the webinar. We want to now leave 15 minutes or so for questions and answers, and then we're going to close with our visualization exercise. So I'm ready when you all are.
Hi, Jen.
Hi, Alyssa.
So I will kind of give people a little bit of time to put in their questions.
Absolutely.
But maybe I'll kick it off with a question. And I know I had this experience. I have a friend who's recently diagnosed with breast cancer, and I see her going through some similar things. And one of the problems she's having is she's exhausted by having to tell everyone that she knows that she's sick. And you know, she's like, I wish I could hire an assistant who could just
to tell that story, right?
Yeah. And do you have any advice on, you know, how do you deal with, like, it's re-traumatizing having to tell everybody every time.
Right. Well, you know, I agree with that, first of all. And there's this other thing I think that happens for us is we feel like we've told the story so many times, and we feel like, gosh, don't you all get it yet? I've told this a million times. And I would feel this sometimes when I would be speaking somewhere and I'd be doing the same presentation, and then I would realize, no, this audience doesn't know, but I have said this a million times and I'm tired of it. You know, one of the things that I think for us to do is to find some paper, to find an article, and to really just hand people that, to email them, and to just say, you know what, I can't tell this story again. I thank you for caring. I want you to know, and direct them to the CSRF website, direct them to an article on the CSRF website that helps, you know, describe Cushing so that they can become informed. My guess is if they're asking, they care. So I know when I returned to work and my memory was just not very good, I didn't share with everybody that, but I handed my boss some articles and shared with her, and she's a psychologist, so she, you know, she kind of got it. I said, you know, sometimes the funniest words come out of my mouth, and I will forget something very simple that you just told me 5 minutes ago. So I'm going to be writing things down more. So I think in lieu of talking, just shoving paper at them, sending them an email, and just saying, I can't, you know, here's my disclaimer, I can't talk about this anymore today. People who care are going to happily read and consider themselves informed. And people who don't care aren't going to listen anyway. So that would be my answer to that.
I signed you a couple of questions.
Okay.
Area.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, my therapist says she does EMDR. Oh, I'm having trouble reading it. I need to figure out how to expand this box.
If you click on it, it should underneath.
Get big? Oh, yes, and there it did. But I'm not ready. It's too painful, but I'm stuck in my trauma. Please comment. Ooh, excellent. I have a great answer for that. One of the pieces of EMDR is what we call resourcing. So I have plenty of patients who say, I am not ready to address that trauma. It's too much. And so I say, absolutely, I honor that. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to do resourcing. And resourcing is, so I would ask your therapist, can you do some resourcing with me? I would also give her Laurel Parnell's book title, Tapping In, and tell her to read it and do that stuff with you. That is resourcing. That entire book is filled with resourcing. So rather than doing the processing, what we're doing is strengthening the internal resources so that we can feel stronger, maybe so that we can feel capable, so that we can feel like maybe one day we'll be ready to process, but it is not processing. So I hope that helps. I think an example of something that I would have done is ask somebody, what skills and abilities do you think you would need to process eventually? Well, I would need confidence, I would need calm, I would need, okay, have you ever had a time in your life when you felt confident or calm? And then we would focus on really tapping in and using some bilateral stimulation to strengthen that sense of confidence and calm. So that we're not processing anything. We may not process for a year, 2 years, it doesn't matter. We are strengthening the internal resources to cope. I hope that helps.
Should see another question there, a couple.
Okay. Yes. How do I make myself get out and do things? Ooh, I know, this is a great one. And again, this is when I wish we were all in the room together, because I think you would see a lot of people just nodding in acknowledgement of how difficult this is. I say for this, we really take baby steps and we think about what is it that would get me out? What do I like to do? What have I liked to do in the past? So I would be getting out to do something fun right away rather than something that could be overwhelming. I would also be sensitive to where you go when you get out. I wouldn't recommend Costco or Walmart. I would recommend something that's not overstimulating, potentially something outside. Maybe there's a local garden. Maybe there is a smaller grocery store that you may want to go to and just pick up an item and leave. So it really has to do with putting ourselves out in public, but for short periods of time, reminding ourselves that we don't have to stay out. I think the key is in really just being sensitive to the overstimulation and not allowing that. And if we begin to feel overstimulated, to sit in our car, to go back home, being really patient with ourselves. I know for me, I love parrots. I own a parrot, and one of the places that I would go would be to this aviary to see the birds, because it was outdoors. I could see and hear the birds. I could have the sunlight, and it wasn't overwhelming to me, but it was a challenge just to get up and get out. So I hope that helps.
There should be another question or two there.
Yep, I see. I've had Cushing's my entire adult life and my second surgery in December. My doctor tells me my expectations are too high, but I'm curious what it was like for other people 6 months after their surgery. I returned to work in February. Well, since we are again not in that virtual room, or we're in a virtual room, but they're not talking, I want to say this. I want to say, in my experience and from what I've read from other patients, many people 6 months out and even 2 years out are not where they want to be. That one of our strengths is having expectations of ourselves, but also one of our weaknesses is that sometimes we're not very compassionate with ourselves when we don't meet our expectations. And in the literature and in what I've read, the recovery period for everyone is so vastly different that we want to compare to others, and yet it's such a unique process for ourselves that it's going to look different from, the 100 people around us. That being said, one of the things that I have found is that our expectations are often not in line with our body's process, and that if we can continue to fall back in and be gentle with ourselves and notice the little changes, the body will absolutely want to heal, and we can celebrate those little changes as we go. So I appreciate that you have a doctor who's that candid, although who wants to hear that, right? Who wants to hear that? But I think, again, just self-compassion with yourself, knowing that your journey is going to be different from everybody else's, but that what I do see people have in common is a rush to wellness that doesn't necessarily align with the body's rush to wellness. I didn't finish reading this. I returned to work in February, working half days, and I still basically crater every day by about 2. And I would say, again, we honor the body. The body's in charge. So it's okay to crater every day by 2. It is absolutely okay. That won't be forever. And I think just reminding ourselves this will not be forever. I hope that helps. Another question says, is there a natural remedy herbal for sleep or anxiety? There are lots of natural remedies that are herbal for sleep and anxiety, and I would recommend talking to a doctor who is open-minded to including herbal remedies, and in lieu of that, a naturopath doctor, perhaps, who has a good understanding of endocrine disorders and Cushing's. So I think it's important that we collaborate with all medical professionals, but absolutely there are things that are out there. And I think that when you collaborate with an open-minded medical professional, you will get very far in finding what works for you. So yeah, there definitely are things that help. And I think that, even vitamins, I would be talking to doctors about, what vitamins can I take in the evening that might calm my nervous system, that might help me sleep. Yeah, good question.
I think a lot of the questions that I'm seeing are kind of, again, people who've gone through the experience of kind of having Cushing's and being operated on, and it takes time. And I think the question is, when will I feel normal?
Right.
How would you respond to that person?
Yeah, when will I feel normal? This is going to sound like a Japanese cone, and I don't mean to be flippant in this. When you feel normal. I wish there was a time. I really do. I remember my one of the physicians, one of the surgeons, the ear, nose, and throat surgeon, who was part of the surgery, said to me, "I want you to know, Dawn, you will look deceptively normal when we're done with you." And I thought, oh. And it was so true, and it helped me because I would tell then friends and family, I'm not better yet, but I know I look deceptively normal. So the answer to when will I feel better, and again, if we had 100 of us in a room, what we would find is that it is different for every single individual. And I wish there was, this 6-month time period or this 1-year time period. Unfortunately, there just isn't. It is different for everyone. It took me 2 years to get off of the replacement therapy because I had to get a hip replacement in the middle of that, and then I had to be put back on steroids to get, so I mean, we have very, as life continues, there are different variables impacting our course, our healing course. Of course, how long we've had the disease before diagnosis, we know impacts the course of healing. But I really believe, and that's why I focus so strongly on the importance of the cognitive strategies, that I have to believe I'm healing. And I have to focus my time and energy on what do I have, right? That serenity prayer. What do I have control over? And how can I help my healing? And just attacking healing in all of those areas, cognitive, behaviorally, spiritually, if that's your thing, and interpersonally. And knowing that when you do that, you are going to improve your quality of life and your healing time. And I wish, when are we better? We're better, I guess, when we're better. And interestingly, you will know that. You will know when you're better. It's almost like you wake up one day and you're thinking, oh, gosh, I don't have the pain I've had. I actually can remember stuff. I read a book. And that starts happening, and then that begets more energy and more hope too. So that's why I think it's important to journal the little things, because they will help you track your healing course when sometimes it doesn't feel like it's happening, or it doesn't feel like it's happening fast enough. So I thank you for that question. I thank everybody for that question, and I wish we had a more definitive answer to that. I would give it to you. Okay, I think I see another question. Oh, maybe not. Was there another question, Alyssa?
Just trying to summarize some things.
Okay, yeah.
You should see. I think maybe if you could comment on, somebody is saying, well, I think that my new normal is different than my old normal, and how do you go through the process of acceptance?
Boy, the process of acceptance absolutely is a journey, and our new normal, sometimes it can feel like our bodies betrayed us, and we can feel as though the medical community has betrayed us, and there can be a whole sense of betrayal, which I think is the trauma that can come along with this diagnosis. And it is when we have that trauma that I'm recommending the EMDR. If you feel that sucker punch and that anger and that bitterness, that I think will respond well to psychotherapy, to some psychotherapy from a therapist who understands chronic illness. It doesn't have to be an EMDR therapist. I like EMDR because it seems to eradicate the sucker punches in the body as well. But ultimately, our new normal is accepted as we honor a grieving process. We have losses. We are incurring losses, and I don't want to minimize the losses. And as we know now, grief does not fit itself into tidy, neat little steps. Grief is messy. It has no time frame. It is filled with a kaleidoscope of feelings. And some of the people who responded to the questions that were posed really spoke about honoring the grieving process and doing just breathing. When grieving hits you, you will know it, because it is a heavy feeling. And I really think, again, it's in the body, and we have to remember to breathe. We have to remember to walk. We have to remember to acknowledge what it is that I'm sad. I'm sad that I have these changes, and some of them are permanent. And there's no easy way to that. I was sad to have 2 total hip replacements in my mid to late 40s, because I always danced, and to not be able to leap and dance anymore was a definite limitation, and it is something that I had to grieve. I'm not able to run, and I'm not able to jump ever again. So I don't think there's an easy way. I think there's just acknowledgement of it in the context of being a grieving process.
I think this comment is something important, and you talk a lot about connecting with others, and this person says they feel like she can't connect with others because people don't want to hear the truth, because other people don't want to hear that.
Yeah, I see that. Yes, I see that. Absolutely. People don't like bad news. That is so true. There are so many people. Well, first of all, I want to step back for a minute and say this. There can be people who care about us that have absolutely no clue what to say, and so they avoid us. Those people can appear to us, if we do some mind reading, as people who don't care, when in fact they're people who are uncomfortable and don't know, they don't have the internal skills to just say, like Bren Brown said, the healing is in the connection. They don't know how to do that. And for people that we suspect maybe care but are avoiding us because they're uncomfortable, I say, you know what, send them Bren Brown's On Empathy animated YouTube video and say, you know what, I get it. I understand this is hard for you and I know you still care. So there's going to be that category of people, the ones who care but are absolutely completely freaked out. The breast cancer community finds out all the time, right? Any cancer, and people just, there's a whole percentage of people that shut down because they're scared, because they think, I don't know what to say, and I don't want to say the wrong thing, and there's a fear of, this could be me. This could be me, this vulnerability. I don't want to see vulnerability in you because it reflects my own vulnerability. So if you really think they care, I say we reach out to them anyway, and we maybe just say to them, look, I get that you don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just be my friend. Now, there's another category of people that we will just lose, that drop off the face of the earth because they really can't hang. And I had that happen too. Actually, had somebody just say that to my face, I can't do this. It's too painful for me. It reminds me of prior losses I've incurred, and so I can no longer be your friend. And I thought, wow, at least that was clear. I think this is where the online support system becomes really important. The butyoudon'tlooksick.com people and the option B has Facebook on their website. They actually have free Facebook groups for various things, including cancer, including other chronic illness, including like those who've lost loved ones to suicide, just all sorts of Facebook groups. And I would encourage you to join a group where you are seen and heard and just understood. And if it has to be online for now, let it be online. We have to be fed, and if it's even just in an online group, just to be seen and heard accurately really calms our nervous system, and it's a start. It's absolutely a start.
That's great. I want to be cognizant of time, and I know that you had something you wanted to do with everyone.
Yes.
So I think to anyone who has a question who we haven't been able to address, I'm taking notes of those, and we'll try to either cover those in the newsletter or on the website, or if it's appropriate, reach out directly. So thank you so much for leaving those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to get ready to wrap up. First of all, I just want to applaud everybody who has stayed on. We've had this really consistent group. Those who have joined have stayed. And I know this is getting late, and you've probably not had your meal or your snack, but I thank you for staying. We are going to wrap up in the next 4 minutes. And so I want to invite anyone who wants to stay around for this creative visualization exercise to do so. And for those of you who that is not your thing and you want to go, I want to thank you for being with us today, for your support of one another, and we will continue to be here for you. So with that, what I'm going to invite us all to do is, wherever you are, whether you are sitting, whether you are laying down, I want you to get comfortable. You're probably pretty comfortable because hopefully you're in the comfort of your home. And I want you to, let's say you're sitting, I want you to notice as you sit in your chair, just notice your back against your chair. If your legs are crossed, try to uncross them, and notice your feet on the floor. And notice your hands in your lap. And as you notice your back in the chair, your feet on the floor, and your hands in your lap, begin to close your eyes if that's comfortable for you, and go inside. And just notice your breath. You don't have to do anything with it. Just notice your breath. Notice your inhale. And notice your exhale. And as you notice your breath, I want you to notice any awareness in your body of comfort, of calm, maybe of pride in having attended today, in taking care of yourself, in being part of the group. And as you continue to notice that inhale and that exhale, and maybe just any small space in your body, or maybe it's a large space where you're beginning to feel that calm. I want you to imagine a place, it can be real or imagined, in which you feel peaceful, you feel calm, you feel safe maybe even. And imagine being in that place, wherever that is, and looking around and noticing what you see. What do you see as you imagine looking around in this place? And as you notice what you see, notice also what you hear. And as you notice what you hear and what you see, notice any sensation on your skin. What do you feel on your skin? What's the temperature like? Is there sun? What time of the day is it? And notice also what you smell. Is there any scent in the air? And as you notice what you see and hear, what you smell and what you feel, notice with the next inhale where that calm lies in your body. Perhaps it's in a certain part of your body. Perhaps it's everywhere. There's no right or wrong. And if you gave this place a name, like a one-word name, notice what that name would be. Now we're going to imagine this calm feeling in your body. If you gave this feeling a color, what color would it be? For some, it'll just be clear. For others, it's going to have a color. And I want you to notice that color that represents that calm. And imagine that color coming down through your head and just bathing you, deepening and bathing you in that sense of calm, perhaps that sense of confidence. I'm doing the best I can. I'm healing every day. And notice that color coming down through your head, down through your eyes, your nose, your cheeks, down through your chin and your neck, down through your shoulders and your arms and out your fingers, down through your chest and your back. There's this continual stream of light color down through your hips and your thighs, your knees and your ankles, and out through your toes. And notice with every inhale, this color continuing. And with every exhale, you exhale anything that is not wanted, that does not serve your healing. With every inhale, you notice this calm, deepening, healing your body. And now we're going to just take a deep breath in and out. And as you take that second deep breath in and out, I want you to, when you're ready, just open your eyes. And on that third deep breath in and out, as you notice your eyes open, you can notice your feet again on the floor. You can wiggle your toes and your fingers. And notice anything you notice in your body. And know that you can take this exercise and you can do this before sleep. You can do this in the morning when you wake up, in the afternoon if you need it. You can take this visualization and use it as you need, whenever you need. And on that note, we're going to wrap up, and I'm going to thank you for your time, your contributions, your attention, and your care for your own healing. It's been an honor to be with you all today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we will be posting a recording. I think I missed the first 5 minutes, so I'm very sorry. But I will be posting a recording within the next few days. And thank you so much, Dawn. This has been wonderful, and we've gotten a lot of people letting us know that they're very thankful for it.
Wonderful. Thank you. My pleasure. I'm honored. Thank you to the Cushing Support and Research Foundation.